Hi my fellow foreign English speakers, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone is welcome to the 36th English Harmony video episode. Tell me, are you often frustrated by the fact that despite being quite a well-spoken foreign English speaker, you can't always speak in full sentences? Are you even getting stuck in the middle of a conversation because you want to finish a sentence, but for some reason you just can't? Let me tell you, you're not alone. It's quite normal. By the way, hadn't you noticed that even native English speakers sometimes hesitate when they speak? You see, when we write, we have all the time in the world to think over the word placement in a sentence. We can scribble out what we wrote and rewrite it so that it sounds much better. When we write, we can formulate our thoughts precisely as we intended because we can take extra time to pick the most fitting words. And most importantly, we can compose nice, complete sentences to create an easy-to-understand message. When we speak, it's a bit different story. Unless you are a very eloquent foreign English speaker, your speech will be a bit different from a written piece of text. When we speak, quite often our mind drifts away and we can't articulate our thoughts exactly as we want, especially when we have to talk about something we're not really familiar with. But no matter what situation you find yourself in, it always helps to be aware of the fact that in real-life English communication, people often speak in short, often unfinished and even broken sentences. You shouldn't take it as a norm, yet when your English confidence is on the line, you'd better look at speaking in short word bursts as a normal occurrence instead of freaking out over it and trying to speak perfectly at all costs. You have to convince yourself that it's alright to speak in short, very simple sentences just to get your message across without perceiving it as a sign of inferior English knowledge. It's normal. It happens all the time with native English speakers, and it's a perfect way of managing your English communication whenever you find yourself in a stressful situation like a meeting, an appointment, an interview, or a conversation with a stranger, or even a conversation with your friend. Imagine yourself having a conversation with an English-speaking friend of yours about the terrible earthquake and tsunami that hit Japan a couple of days ago. Your friend asks you, so how do those tsunamis really form? We've all heard about them, but I never really understood the very process behind their formation. Let's assume, for the argument's sake, that you're not very good at discussing technical terms in English. You have a pretty good understanding of how tsunamis form, but you can't say it all in a long sentence automatically, like tsunamis are formed when a seabed is suddenly deformed by tectonic plates pressing against each other and the upper plate being suddenly released. The resulting tectonic uplift releases an enormous amount of energy into overlying water mass, causing it to move upwards and form a gigantic tsunami wave. You know that you would be perfectly fine if you had to write it down. You know that you could articulate your knowledge into such sentences if you could think about it for a while, and you even know that you could be capable of saying it all if speaking with yourself. But now, in a situation when someone else asks you a question, and quite naturally you have to give a fairly quick response, your mind may start racing, and suddenly it becomes very difficult to put your thoughts into the exact words and form a nice long sentence as you speak. Don't try to be perfect by all means. A perfectly normal response to your friend's question would be something along the lines of, well, to put it simply, tsunamis are caused by earthquakes. So here's how it works. Two tectonic plates are pressing against each other. Tectonic plate is a certain area of the Earth's crust, so the upper plate is kind of stuck to the bottom plate. And then at some stage, it suddenly breaks free. The movement is very fast. Water right above the tectonic plate is pushed up, forming the tsunami wave. You see, you can explain your point using short and easy to construct sentences. And please remember that it doesn't necessarily signify lack of English fluency. On many occasions, both native and foreign English speakers use shorter sentences and simpler words to make the verbal message easy to perceive. Also, a very important factor in verbal communication is hand gestures that accompany the spoken word. Just compare these two messages. Sometimes tectonic plates press against each other under the seabed. The top plate is pushed very hard. Suddenly it breaks free. All water above the area is pushed upwards. This is basically how tsunami waves are formed. And sometimes tectonic plates press against each other under the seabed. The top plate is pushed very hard. Suddenly it breaks free. All water above the area is pushed upwards. This is basically how tsunami waves are formed. So tell me now, please, doesn't the second message convey the message more successfully? I think it certainly does, and I believe that any foreign English speaker is capable of explaining even complicated things of a technical nature using simple vocabulary and basic grammar. The previous message can be simplified even further. Here's two tectonic plates, right? They're stuck. Then the top one slips. Water is being pushed up. So that's how tsunamis happen. I'm not saying you have to simplify everything you say to such a basic level. My point is that if you struggle with explaining something in a conversation, rather go for very simple, basic verbal means of expression instead of frantically trying to create the perfect sentence in your mind, thus risking confusing your conversation partner because he's not going to wait 30 seconds before you're ready to speak, right? So the next time you listen to an English-speaking person talk, try to make notice of how often their speech consists of short, simple sentences. Pay attention to how sentences can be cut short if the person can't really finish them off. Say, for example, you start saying, sometimes tectonic plates are, and then all of a sudden you can't really finish off the same sentence because you're struggling a bit to put it all in the right words. Now it's perfectly fine to cut the sentence short and start a new one. Well, you see, if they're stuck together, they can't move. Alright, it's time we wrap today's episode up. So the main point I was trying to make is that quite often both foreign and native English speakers use short sentences and a few word combinations when speaking, instead of forming long sentences. Partially, it's because when we speak, we don't have time to prepare the thought beforehand and polish it to perfection. Also, it's only natural that when we find ourselves in a stressful situation, it doesn't really matter if you're a native or a foreign English speaker, you'll find it harder to speak very freely using long, well-spoken sentences. So make it your goal to make yourself clear instead of trying to create a perfect long sentence as you speak. And even though sometimes you may worry about what others will assume hearing you speak in a very simple way, don't fret over it and let it go. Alright, thanks for watching the 36th video episode and see you around Paddy's Day, alright? Bye!